viewers, welcome to yet another edition of special program on the iAfrica TV discussing the way forward against COVID-19. My name is Ibrahim Ba. So at this moment, we just know that the National Assembly has concluded session that was meant to discuss issues about how to get rid of the COVID-19. The second extraordinary session of the National Assembly in Banjul for the year 2020 has just ended with a lot of discussions and debates and decisions made already. But what is substantial so far is that the issue of extension on the state of public emergency could not proceed. What does this mean for Gambia? While we will be discussing shortly, we want to link back to the National Assembly chambers where one of the National Assembly members, and specifically Honorable Halifa Sallah, member for Serekunda, is on the standby to discuss what exactly happened today. Honorable Sallah, welcome to the special edition. Yeah, so Halifa Sallah, while he's getting ready on connectivity, my colleague here, Teresa Ona, was also yesterday at the National Assembly for the same coverage. We have now seen that the issue of extension on the state of public emergency for another 45 days, as requested by government, didn't happen. So what actually happened is the rejection. National Assembly members voted against the motion to say that they need more seriousness. What do you make of this?
I just hope that they did a thorough research before rejecting the government's proposal, because we all know other countries that did not do thorough research, did the same thing, and they are getting a devastating result right now.
You might be talking about, like, in Africa, yes, the number of cases, according to the Center for Disease Control, says about 60,000 cases are already registered, because countries are easing. So looking at South Africa, looking at Ghana, specifically are mentioned by this Center for Disease Control. So, but Gambia needed to extend a public emergency, but they felt that the restrictions are not well taken care of, are not enforced. So the Assembly, as a professional institution and an arm of government, is not happy to be associated with something that is not taken seriously.
Yeah, that may be correct, but they make the law, and there is a branch of government who is responsible for enforcing this law. People will go out because they want to go out, but if we look at other countries, we see the police going out to enforce the law to make sure that people stay home. And maybe they should have done more of sensitization, going to community to sensitize the people to know that the epidemic is really serious.
Yeah, so that is
helped.
Actually the situation, because initially when the National Assembly rejected the motion, there were a lot of recommendations. They told the Minister of Justice, who moved the motion on behalf of government, to do certain adjustment, to give assurance to the Assembly that if they give extra time or extra period for the state of public emergency, the restriction regulations such as the enforcement on the limitation of number of passengers per vehicle and the social distancing issues will be respected in the markets. So going through markets such as the Serekunda and Banjul markets, is it easy to deal with?
No, it has not been easy, because quite recently I was at Selekunda markets. For the drivers, really, they are doing well. They are adhering to what they've been asked to do. But in the market, the problem here is the population for Selekunda markets. People go there to buy, especially this corrected time, and people go there in massive numbers. So I think the police people should be there to make sure that certain numbers of people go at a particular time. And these things have not been happening in the Gambia, actually, especially at the market. The only time I could remember, I was there 2 days before, and around 6 o'clock, you see the police were saying you have to park. Yes, people will park, but in that process, people were rushing again. So that social distance have not been really effective.
That's a very important point, because actually, as of Saturday, what happened, even the National Assembly Select Committee on the implementation of these emergency powers ended up recommending that the government could be given at least 21 days. So now that the Assembly has ended sessions, which was purely emergency or extraordinary situation, meaning that the president will be left with the option to declare another state of public emergency, which will last for 21 days. So instead of the National Assembly now having to approve it, the president has constitutional powers, according to the 1997 document, to declare another state of public emergency. What does this mean in terms of the arm of government, executive, National Assembly as checks and balances issues?
Well, what I was thinking about here is like the government have to do something very fast, because I don't know why the National Assembly actually is opposing to the government request to extend this 45 days.
Yeah, the National Assembly is saying simply like that, we
They
interacted with the National Assembly members, couple of them, like the one for Brikama North, Alaji Dabo. We also interact with the chairman of the Select Committee, Alaji Mbo. So what they are sounding, and many others did this during the debate. So they said that, during the first period of emergency, you understand, it was not respected. It was like, they were not respecting the principle, so they don't see any need to give further. So it seems like Honorable Salah is on the line. We'll get back to Banjul, where Halifa Salah, welcome to this special edition.
Thank you very much.
So we understand that the National Assembly has ended session. This was the extraordinary session that was convened by the Assembly to discuss the matter of seriously needed for the country to fight COVID-19. So it has ended. How did it go today?
Well, what is important, I've had your discuss, but clearly you need to have some understanding of what this session is all about. The session is brought about through the instance of the executive. The president wrote to the speaker, and this is proper, under section 98 of the Constitution, that the president may ask the speaker to summon a session of the National Assembly to discuss matters of national concern. The key matter was the extension of the state of public emergency. When they first brought the motion for extension of the state of public emergency, we made it clear to them we do not want to have a situation where the president will declare a state of emergency, allow it to lapse, and then declare another one, which means that the president will have absolute authority to declare a state of emergency whenever he so desires. That therefore we must exploit the constitutional restraint which ensures the separation of powers and makes it also workable. And section 34 of the Constitution indicates very clearly that if the president believes that a state of emergency may arise or arises, he can declare a state of public emergency if the threat is evident. That's all that section 34 provides for the president to do. And if he does that, he can also revoke the declaration, but he is required, if the parliament is sitting, within 7 days to bring a motion to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly has power by resolution to extend the state of emergency for a period of 90 days or less, not more. But if we are not sitting, then it could extend to 21 days. to allow the
Honorable
National Assembly to sit.
This is a very important point, but just to get back to, like we, as you
No,
discussed with us
allow
yesterday.
me, because you've distorted quite a lot. Let me clarify. Don't confuse anybody about our laws. I am a lawmaker. I am saying that 21 days is what is given to the president if we are not sitting, like now we have adjourned sine die. When the president declares a state of emergency, it lasts for 21 days, and Parliament will have to sit to consider its extension. That's all a state of emergency declaration says. It is just simply words on paper. Whether you declare it for 100 days, 1 million days, it has nothing that it can impact on the population. It's just a declaration. What impacts on the country is the regulation. Section 35 of the Constitution provides for the president to be able to have an act of the National Assembly, like the Emergency Powers Act, which will empower the president to be able to make regulations. And we do have an Emergency Powers Act, and that act says that the president can make regulations after the declaration of a state of emergency. Now, my friend, the power of the assembly is that any time under section 34 subsection 5 that the state of emergency is declared, the National Assembly can meet and revoke it. So National Assembly has absolute power to revoke a declaration of a state of emergency at any time, even if you give the president a whole year.
Honorable Salah,
and once you
right now
ensure that you fail to, once that is done, then all the regulations also will lapse.
You know, the National Assembly is not sitting right now because the session has just ended. So meaning the National Assembly will be considered an institution that is on recession for now. So if the president happens to declare a state of public emergency, how could the Assembly revoke that? What procedure would that require?
It will require, he would have 21 days. And then the National Assembly would have to consider that, to be able to sit for any extension to be requested for, and they will decide whether to extend it or not. Now, what has been done here is something that we will still have to go and digest as National Assembly members. Because the executive came to us to request for an extension of what we can revoke at our will. Now, if he did not ask us to convene the emergency session, then we would have still been under adjournment. And therefore, if he declared a state of emergency, he would have 21 days.
So, Salah, how many more times can the president declare a state of emergency when the assembly is not sitting?
As long as the National Assembly is not sitting, when the president declares a state of emergency, it lasts for 21 days. So every 21 days, it lapses, and you must have a new declaration.
So, because the recommendations, you made a lot of recommendations as parliamentarians during the sessions that, you know, your reservations were clear that the initial state of public emergency had a lot of challenges. So, why wouldn't the executive make those amendments and then make sure that it is the National Assembly that approves state of public emergency as representative of the people?
Well, you've told me not to go into what you are now asking me that I've been clarifying. You see, that is why people who ask questions must seek to get facts. If you don't get the facts, we'll start debating on theories. The fact that we need to look at is the president has powers to declare a state of emergency. If we are not sitting, it lapses within 21 days. If we are sitting, it lapses 7 days, unless he comes to the National Assembly to request for an extension. What happened here clearly is not as you people are explaining it. What happened here is just an oversight, and I am sure we'll get over it.
Yeah,
because we had our act together.
Salah, it is interesting because we also have a lot of followers who ask these questions that if the president could or the executive could convene an extraordinary session for this matter and it doesn't happen, so I mean there is a sort of hiatus, or I mean the implementation of the law becomes complicated now, because if the president knew he could. It's not
complicated, because what happens now is that when he declares another state of emergency, the regulations will be considered to be regulations again that will be put into operation. And that is what Parliament wanted to avoid. What we wanted to avoid is that when he brings, we extend. You can see the first motion was 90 days, we reduced it to 45 days. Now the second motion, what could have happened is that when he makes the motion for 45 days, someone from the National Assembly could also rise up and say, no, we don't agree with that. We want it to be 21 days. And then we would have talked about a reconciliation of the two sides, and probably we would have come to 30 days, because it is irrational for the president to request for a National Assembly to be convened when it is not in session, and the state of emergency could have lapsed, and he would have declared it again and get 21 days. What would be the use to come to National Assembly for 21 days? That's not rational. So in essence then, coming to the National Assembly was with the expectation that it will be extended to 45 days. Since they came for 90 days in the first instance, we reduced it to 45. It would have been logical when they come with 45, we say, let's reduce it to 30 days. So in that sense, they will see that we are in control. But as you have asked, the regulations, we've analyzed it here. You've heard me say that the closure of mosques and churches, that's a draconian regulation. And it is important for the minister to consider that we don't need to talk about closure. You can just simply talk about restriction of the gatherings in mosques and all other places, because the objective is to ensure social distancing. And if you had talked to the leaders of mosques and said, well, maybe the most committees, the church leaders will be the one who will be attending symbolically to keep them open until we fight this COVID-19, who would not agree with that? So that is the purpose of Parliament, to inject rationality, because what the law says is that whatever regulation is put into operation must be reasonably justifiable to be able to deal with the situation. So our task is to look at the regulation and see what is reasonable and justifiable. That's why some members said, well, closing Lumos did not make sense. And the minister said, yes, it did not make sense. Lumos will be considered on the open markets. And therefore, they will work with the local government to see how they can open it. That is the relationship between the executive and the legislature. It's separation of powers. We have the power of oversight, examining whether something is reasonable and justifiable, and make recommendations.
Honorable Salah,
we feel this time, but I'm sure we'll be able to get our acts together next time.
Yes, even though the National Assembly has ended sessions just now, so what will be the role of the National Assembly now on regards to the issues of preventive measures and towards fighting against COVID-19 now on?
Our committees are operative. I'm sure as if they do declare state of emergency and put the regulations, our duty is to affirm the regulations whenever we are in session. So whatever regulation they put in force will last for the number of days that the president has. That's the 21 days. And then we would have to examine those regulations to affirm or revoke, reject it. So in essence then, by revoking the state of emergency, we can take that route, but that's not the route that the president declaring and we come and revoke. What type of a state would operate under such a method of governance? So definitely our committees will be keeping watch of the enforcement of the regulations, and they will continue to interact with the executive to ensure that the best thing is done for the country.
Yeah, I will not keep you longer, Halifa Salah. So, but looking at the situation we are in right now as a country going towards the end of holy month of Ramadan, where a lot of festivals are expected and the flow of people and services here and there is going to heighten up. So what will happen if the president is yet, what measure in fact is needed? Because the president declaration of another state of public emergency is uncertain as of now. So what measure should be in place to take care of the situation of coronavirus?
The Gambian people should know that this is not about President Barrow, it's not about Halifa Saleh, this is about COVID-19. There is no single member of parliament who will stand and tell you that COVID-19 is not a threat to our existence. So it's a threat. And whatever is a threat is why you declare a state of public emergency. Now, what we must do is to bear in mind that the threat is there. What happens at the level of the Executive and National Assembly is another matter. Each citizen should protect himself or herself, the community, and the people. Maintain safe distance, wash hands, and reduce the exposure to the illness. That is important because we are told here that the peak may come in June. So this is the time to really ensure that we protect ourselves.
Thank you very much, Honorable
Therefore,
Salah.
we must move into civic education so that the people will understand that we are dealing with a danger that is ravaging a major power like the United States.
Thank you very much, Honorable
We
Salah.
will not allow that.
We leave it there for now. We appreciate your time to talking to us on this short special. Thank you very much, Salah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was Honorable Halifa Saleh from Serekunda, who after the closure of sessions at the National Assembly in Banjul, talking to us live from the chamber. So you could see from the deliberation that is about constitutional issues, and generally it is about fighting COVID-19, and then the executive would have hoped that the National Assembly had extended the issue of extension to 45 days, but that was not achievable. Now, the initial recommendation of the Assembly Select Committee for 21 days might be the final result for the president maybe to declare, so that, you know, people like to hear a lot of declarations, so that there is a sense of maybe seriousness.
I'm hoping also that he do declare, because looking at the danger of the pandemic, we don't know how is government really prepared to deal with the situation in case this virus escalates. Now that we have fewer cases, we are seeing the lawmakers are also talking about the budget. There is no enough funding. What about if it escalates? So it will be very good if the president can come out with a press release or with a statement, so that we
you are a fan of state of public emergency. The business community will say that no, this is supposed to be like this for the meantime. But what is important for the fight against COVID-19 is the fact that everybody is at risk, and that is the message from the Ministry of Health and Health Workers, that no one is exempted. Once there is a pandemic, it means it endangers everybody's life. So we will not go further than this, but to leave you from here and until another edition of the special program on iAfrica TV, which we bring to you daily. Stay with us on all our programs. News is coming next, and then News in Brief is also on the pipeline. But meanwhile, you can go to www.iafrica.tv. Bye for now.